Excited ties, but the usual thing, we just have to check that everyone can hear me every time I come from a... So what is going on here? Something is weird. I don't know what. There's a weird little band there. I'm not sure I can do a lot about it because I've just realised what the likely cause of it is. No, we'll just have to deal with it. Sorry. Where was I? Yes, so if someone could say something in the chat, then I can see if it's all working. And I can tell you my news for today. Because all very, very exciting. I'm just going to check on here so I can see if anyone posts in actual Twitch. I can see something as well. Great, Dovrak. How are you? How are you, Gaz? Now, so, to start with, I'm just going to put it on Discord because stuff's still going on. As some of you may know, I'm a Retribution Paladin. And as some more people or fewer people may know, that I was quite disconsolate when Blizzard seemed to be basically saying that what they were going to do is get all the classes and specs from Legion, take away the artifact weapons, and run along little specs, run along into Battle for Azeroth. Few little changes, and that's pretty much it. Hi, Kasasha. Hi, Midget. And then a wonder happened a few weeks ago. We log on to the alpha. The background is from the alpha. It's a nice little scene. It's a nice little waterfall. I quite like it, actually. So yes, each week I shall do another little still from the alpha, what I think is a nice little screenshot. Every now and then, if you watch me in the alpha, every now and then when I'm streaming, I will just go, oh, this looks nice, and I will get rid of my UI and take a screenshot of it. Where was I? Sorry, yes. So, a few builds ago with the alpha, all the talents changed for Retribution Paladins and some baseline abilities as well, one in particular. And it was like, oh, exciting. This is all really nice. It's really, really nice. And in the very, very small changes that have come since have actually just been improvements on that. So, I basically said, this is actually really good. There's obviously a new development philosophy there, probably because of new people. I'm not saying all new people. I'm not saying all the old people were necessarily bad, but there was obviously some influences that were not, great. And I thought they deserved cookies. So I tried to find somewhere in California that would accept my payment. Hi, Pinky Tag. I'm well, thank you. And I dispatched them. So now apparently they've arrived because, okay, so where's the first of the things I need to link here? Where? Somewhere. Basically, this fella has announced himself, John Yang, who is a guy who's working on this. He's worked on Diablo as well, apparently. I don't know anything about that. So he has received the cookies. It's took it about a week, so I don't know where they've been in that time. So there you go. Now, that's the exciting thing. So he's announced himself as being the person chiefly responsible for those changes. And, well, this is where it gets even better. Because a while ago, about an hour ago, he suddenly went onto the Paladin Discord and has started chatting about stuff. And it's fantastic. There's basically, evening Morales, there's basically a developer in the Paladin Discord actually having a conversation with people. And it's actually really interesting. So, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. Well, you say Wish All Spits had people who cared about the work on them. They probably are. That's it. They probably are. Because this sort of thing doesn't really happen. When do we ever see developers just randomly discussing things with people? Does it happen? I mean, people who play other classes in other Discords, does this ever happen? I've never seen this. We have Ian Hazakostas and Law doing the live Q&As, which are really nice. But the idea of developer just, we had the Reddit AMA, but again, that was a scheduled thing. Someone actually just coming onto Discord and have a nice chat. And it is a nice chat as well. I hope there aren't people PMing him and giving him a hard time, because that'd be crap. But it's actually a really nice discussion there. It's quite fun. So basically, so what he said was, okay, I'll tell you what, whatever you say in the next 12 seconds, I will put in the game. Guess what basically everyone said? Have a guess what everyone would actually ask for. Is this the first dev to openly admit to being a dev in one of their class discords? I don't. It's the first one I've seen. I mean, it wasn't Seals, no. No, it was even more topical than that. It's... before I tell you, no, certainly not known paladins. No. And stop cheating with punctuation. Oh, I forgot what I was going to say now. Yes, anyway, sorry. We do have a community manager who plays a paladin as well. He's in there openly. But in terms of a dev, yes, it's the first time that I've known. I mean, we all know that they're sort of in there. Of course they are. You know, they want to find out what people know. Troll, yeah, Kisosh has got it. So basically, this is what... Let's make it a bit bigger. Can I make it a bit bigger? Cover myself up for a minute. So it says, everything you can request in the next 12 seconds, reduced by haste, which is a bit unfair because we don't know what his haste is, will get put in the game. Zandalari Paladins, Zandalari Paladins, Zandalari Paladins, Zandalari Paladins. Then someone was talking about Cavalier. And then I asked for a passive aura where gnomes that come within 10 yards of me take 5% health damage per second. Although he then said that he had nothing to do with classes or races, as in class race stuff. So unfortunately, he was the wrong person to be pushing about that. Hi, Midget. So let's have a look. Got a question. Blizz said that they have a dedicated team to test mythic raids out. Why is it that fights like Covenant Agrimar, where there's huge favoritism requirement for range and punish your raid for having melee? But that's just unfortunately the way I... That, to be fair, has got nothing to do with the encounter design team. Or not much to do with it. That is actually really the class design team. More than anything. I would say... The problem is, to be fair, the encounter design team basically have... they're not supposed to deny themselves cool mechanics. Now, okay, sometimes they could do better, but the whole point, remember, because we used to have heroic raiding, which is what we call mythic raiding now, the top level of raiding, as 10 man and 25 man. The whole argument for combining them together, which I agree was a good thing for other reasons, was so that, because they said, well, the encounter design team kept having to go, oh, I've got a really great idea for mechanic, but we can't do it, because either it'd be too easy on 10 man and really, really hard on 25 man, or vice versa. So they were basically denying themselves things. So they made it 20 man, so it was a set size. You do what you want. The downside to that is that they fail to acknowledge that there are twice as many classes that can only play melee as there are that can only play ranged. You know, so out of your 12 classes, 6 have to be melee if they're going to DPS. They have to be. 3 have to be ranged. And then there's another 3 that can be either. Multi-dotters is a big problem. And again, that is a class issue. Not so much a class. You know, there's nothing wrong with Coven in theory if the classes had the tools to deal with it. Now, all right, I will grant you that lightning, that lightning thing, 2 yard spread thing, that's awkward. But it's not in itself a bad mechanic. It's the way that classes can't really deal with stuff. Hi, Slayer Revenge. Can anyone link the week up for Explosive? I wouldn't be able to, and other people wouldn't either. They could DM it to me, I suppose, and then I could link it. Only locks mages. No, priests have to be raged if they want a DPS. Priests. They can't melee. Even though, funnily enough, I remember in Vanilla, what was it now? It was in Blackwing Lair. Yeah, that was it. In Blackwing Lair, you got these class trinkets, which were not really good for raiding. I think the idea of them was, or we thought in my guild at the time, the idea of them was that when you finished Blackwing Lair at the time, obviously it was done. There was no other raid out, Anchorage hadn't come out at the time. And it was something to go and do PvP or something like that. Like Scrolls of Blinding Light was the one we had for Paladins. I've still got mine, actually. But Priest got one. I can't remember what it did. It's still in the game. So you could just go to Blackwing Lair and get it, I suppose. But whatever it was the sort of thing that seemed to work if someone was hitting you. So we used to joke that it was like melee priest. But in reality, no. Priests don't melee. So yeah, anyway, what else did he do? So he was talking, this guy. And I need to do a video on this today because I sort of knew about this, but not officially. But he's basically said it in an open channel, so it's out there, it's news. So when it comes to AoE, or cleave, I should say, cleave, they've got a definite philosophy in mind for BFA. So this is exclusive. This is a news flash, which I haven't been able to talk about before. Basically, right, because at the moment, as people have been noting, I've been saying that paladins don't really have two-target cleave in the BFA alpha. In fact, we don't have it at all. There is no there's nothing we can do with two targets. When we've got two targets, we DPS one target down, and then we move to the other. That is deliberate, okay? So what is said is, we intend for all specs, with the exception of two target specialists, Destro, Frost Mage, Arms, to enter their AoE rotation on 3+ targets. So nobody is going to have any two-target cleave in BFA apart from those 3 specs. Destro Warlock, Frost Mage, Arms Warrior. Everyone else is going to single target unless there's at least 3 mobs, and then they're going to AoE. So that's an actual thing for BFA that has been decided, obviously, at the top level, because that applies to all classes and specs. It's not been, you know, decided on a thing-by-thing basis. So there you go. So that's the exciting thing about this this Discord chat. Actually, we've actually got to find some stuff out. Some of it is very specific to Ret Paladin, so I won't bore people with that here. I may do a separate video on that. He's probably, I think he's stopped talking now. But that, what about Aflock's recent Boomkids? No. That is, I'll put it up there again. I shall put it up there again. This is it. We intend for all specs, with the exception of 2 target specialists, Destro, Frost Mage, and Arms, to enter their AoE rotation on 3+ targets. That's everyone. That's everyone. That's Shadow Priest, that's Boomkins, and that's Affliction Locks. It didn't discuss a lot. You've got to bear in mind, he's not like... I get the impression that they're not supposed to just go off and randomly talk to people. Obviously, they're allowed to communicate because he's done it. Wouldn't it be nice if they did this more often, though? This was absolutely amazing. So there were only a few little snippets, and the vast majority of them related only to Retribution Paladins. There's only that one that relates to any, you know, as a general thing. Everything else. Hiya, Fraser. You say can't be so. The tooltips don't state that dots only work on one target at a time, because actually they don't have to, right? We're not saying that you won't be able to dot 2 targets at once. What we'd presumably be saying is that if you do that, it'll be a DPS loss over just focusing one target, is what I'm guessing they mean by that. All right? Send more cookies. No, they get more cookies when they do something good. They've got to do something good now. You know, is up to the game. I don't know what it's going to take to get something more than cookies. Or even more cookies. Other classes and specs. Because I did notice when I was reading that tweet, some of the replies, someone, a rogue player, obviously, was saying that they were very pleased, that the rogue, well, this particular rogue anyway, was very pleased with what they'd done to rogues on the BFA Alpha. I haven't even looked at them yet, so I don't know. So maybe the rogue should be sending some cookies and muffins and brownies. So yeah. But basically, yeah, it just came onto Discord. I mean, I thought, is he still there? Yeah, he's still there, blimey. Wow. So this is all very, very pleasant. So yeah, other classes and specs should send. Because that was what surprised me. Do you know what surprised me most about it? When... What was it? Where was it? Where's the tweet? Where is the tweet? It says, first time ever getting mailed a present for my class design work. You know, obviously it's suggestive that they don't... I would have thought people would send them stuff all the time, wouldn't you? Maybe they don't. Hi, Heracles. Heracleos. I don't know. Speaking of pally, been leveling your pally out and sent 3 legendaries and got the belt and soul of the high wall. Look at you. But yeah, so that's quite interesting. I think it would be absolutely nice, because what's going on there, I mean, you know, in terms of arguments for why devs don't just go into Discords and start up a little chat, you know, the argument is probably that you get a load of idiots, window lickers, basically coming up with stupid things to say, whereas there, That's a perfectly nice discussion going on. The fact that he's still there, I'm guessing, means people aren't pinging him and trying to say stupid things in private, or that he's just ignoring them. It's very sensible. How do I know the address? I just looked it up. What's the address of Blizzard HQ? It's not hard, actually, because they've got their own road. It's on One Blizzard Way or something. Can't remember. I could look at... Well, let's look it up again. I can't remember. It'll be in my email receipt, won't it? Here we go. One Blizzard Way, Irvine, or Irvine, I don't know how you pronounce it in California, sorry, with a Californian zip code, as you say, and United States of America. You know, there you go. But what I specifically wrote to get to the right person is I wrote class design team, WoW development. In fact, let's get it up again. It's got the card. Do you know the annoying thing is, though? I ought to moan at the company. So let me just try and make this a bit bigger. Cover myself up again. So you can see on the card there... hold on. Where's me Ashbringer? There's my pointer. And the card says class design team WoW development. So that's part of the address I sent it to. And then on the actual thingy, that's what I enclosed. Thanks for the Ret Paladin change on BFA Alpha. I did put after the full stop Thete, so they knew who it was from. But they've obviously missed that off. So, I don't know. But anyway, there you go. Well deserved. But it keeps saying cookies. It's not supposed to be just cookies. It's supposed to be brownies and muffins as well. Maybe they didn't get to those yet. I didn't know the name of the rhetoric class design. No, I know now. Well, no, I don't think there is one. I think he's just happened to be working on that. He works on other things as well. You know, I don't think, and it wouldn't be good. We don't want a particular person responsible for each class or spec. Because the problem is then, I've said this before, more influential. They're always, in any team, in any workplace, going to be members of a team who in theory are on the same level, but some of them have more influence with management than others. It's just the way of things. So you wouldn't want that because you just end up with an arms race then based on who's the most influential developer. So he just happens to, you know, they've sent them to him because obviously he's considered to be the one who's mostly doing that. Have I seen the Azerite armor effects? I saw the ones for hunters and shamans. That's the ones that's been data mined. I mean, an emphasis seems to be on utility as well, rather than throughput. But we've only got like a couple to really compare it with at the moment, haven't we? A lot of the ones that have been data mined completely discount. They're just placeholder ones, the ones that just randomly buff stuff. So the proper ones seem to be what Wowhead were tweeting about and posting, of course, on their website. Which is hunter. There's some hunter and shaman stuff been data mined. Yeah, I did see that. So, what was it now? There was a nice mobility one for hunters, wasn't there? That was quite an interesting one. Maybe there'll be one for paladins as well. Maybe everyone's worrying about mobility and going, oh, boom, no mobility. Maybe we get mobility on the Azerite armor. You know, people should consider that maybe. Maybe with that will even include Long Arm of the Law. So just because we don't have it as a talent or as a baseline ability, it may be that, you know, Azerite armor is the way it's going to go. Maybe I should have asked that as well. I've completely abandoned this discussion now. I was trying to convince him to make the Judgment debuff a buff, but anyway, never mind that. But so yes, that's my exciting news for today. So everyone else has time for exciting news. Or things to discover. You're not sure you'd like to have to choose between movement and potential DPS? No, no one would. But it may not be a choice of that. That's what I mean. Depending on exactly, you know, if the Azerite armor is more about, you know, maybe there's you always have to have a certain balance of melee, of throughput and utility. Maybe. I mean, bear in mind, we had, for plate wearers anyway, we had speedy boots. There's legendary boots, Agromar Stride. Sometimes people actually use those, even when they had DPS alternatives. Also, I mean, I come at it from a raid point of view. In a dungeon, mobility is more of an issue. In a raid, it's usually not that bad. You generally don't have to... Sometimes, okay, there are some fights where having better mobility will give you a larger margin for error. I don't think it's ever the case that you need that mobility, but it gives you an easier time of it, and therefore you're less likely to you know, fail. You would hope the Azerite traits are unique, as in you cannot stack the same trait. Oh, absolutely. I would certainly agree with that. I mean, there are still only limited understanding of how it's going to work. It's still not real. Just because it's been data mined doesn't mean to say it's actually playable in the alpha yet, which is not. I don't know whether they need to be. Do you know what I was looking at as well? Oh, hang on, Battle.net needs a restart. I was looking at something. I was in Battle.net and I went to the BFA alpha bit. And then I noticed at the side of it, just like it has for the live version, on the alpha, there's a little link that says view the patch notes. So I thought, oh, I'll have a little look at that, see what they've written. You know, it's a nice, patch notes are a really nice way to keep on top of what there is changed. I clicked on it. And I was reading it and it was talking about the squish, the stat squish that was going on. And I thought, okay. And then I started reading it and it seemed a bit weird. In fact, I'll read it out to you. And there's a reason for this. But to begin with, because I didn't pay attention to the top, I just read... what was that? I went straight down to the bullet points. Okay. So the first thing I read was, character stats have been squished into smaller numbers that are easy to understand. It's important to understand that this is not a nerf, as enemies have been squished as well. Okay. And then it said, a new row of talents has been added for level 100. And I thought, no, it hasn't. And then I read it properly. These are the patch notes for Warlords of Draenor Alpha. It's not even Legion. It's not even an expansion behind. It's too. They've obviously completely given up doing patch notes about 3 years ago or 4 years ago. You use the speed boots all the time. I have a speed set, which I could, you know, if I'm having to run back, say, like corpse run, or if I'm in a dungeon and it's a long way to get to the next pack, I'll put that on and then change back. Sometimes when I remember. You would hope... Oh, no, we already said that one. Yeah, so... but, well, this is the thing. I mean, Azerite Armour was supposed to... Because although everyone's going, hooray, no legendaries in BFA... It depends what you didn't like about the legendaries, because they are in BFA. It's just that the effects of them are in the Azerite Armour. God, I couldn't think of words there. Hi, everyone. Yes, they did receive my present. And as a result, it has spawned a nice little discussion. Where was I? Yes. So Azerite Armour is basically legendaries, artifact weapons, and artifact power into the bargain as well. And something else, I can't remember. What else? Oh, tier, of course, yeah. So replacing tier sets. So all the things we got with Legends, if it's like having all these lots of effects that you have to choose between, and maybe swap around for different fights, well, that's, I imagine, how Azerite Armour is supposed to work. It's the way it looks like it's going to work anyway to me. And then, of course, we need to get all the Azerite to be able to buff it all. So that's the artifact power. That's the thing that's going to be making us have to farm bloody artifact power. Which I don't like. And again, I bet they don't put a weekly cap on it. Because I think the last time they were asked about it, they still seem to think that it shouldn't have that. Isn't it weird how the game was most popular when we had almost none of these fancy Titan forging? Tons of legendaries and now Azerite Armour. Well, sometimes, you know, it's tempting to sometimes think that the relative, that is, because it's still very popular, the relative unpopularity is down to the things that were introduced. But sometimes it's just time. You know, it was wildly popular at a time, it became very popular at a time when MMOs were starting to get bigger. People had the facilities to do it. I mean, MMOs before WoW's time, not that many people had broadband. Broadband, certainly in the UK, and I get the impression in other countries as well, broadband was starting to become more accessible. And playing an MMO on dial-up, I wouldn't have even tried doing that. No. It was bad enough browsing the internet with dial-up, let alone trying to play an online game, which I did occasionally try to do. That was not good. And that was with just me in the house. If there'd have been someone else who then randomly picks up the phone and knackers your connection, oh, God. So, you know, broadband became more accessible. It became super popular. Well, Gaz, we have monopolies in the UK as well, right? So we still have a crap service, but it's still broadband. Broadband is still broad. It still allows us to be able to play online games. It's shit. You know, we still have copper cables in most of the country. Very, very little is fibre. Because the government do not force it. The government understand there's a problem with this, and they understand it's hitting productivity for the country. It's not just about me being able to play a game. And they keep moaning at the industry for not, you know, updating our network, but they don't actually do anything about it. You'd be curious to see why people play WoW. Titan Fortune. Well, the thing is, you know, things like artifact power, Titan Forging, time gating, for example, LFR, remember, comes out in stages. All of those devices are designed to keep people subscribed. There's two types of players of World of Warcraft, really. There's the types who will play it all the time anyway. Without any of those things, they'll still play it. That's like probably most of us, or certainly me, anyway. And we'll keep paying the subscription, whatever. Like, I'll give you an example. At the end of I came back towards the end of Cataclysm, just in time for Dragon Soul. And what they did at that time, they brought out Diablo 3, but they also brought out for World of Warcraft the annual pass. This was being able to pay 12 months for a 12-month subscription all in one go. And the sweetener for it was you got Diablo 3 free. Now, I wasn't a fan of Diablo. I was aware of Diablo and Diablo 2. Not a fan of it. So I didn't do it for the Diablo 3. I did it because I knew I was coming back to the game and I was going to stay in the game. So that's the basis why I bought it on. But obviously, you know, a lot of people did not realise that that annual pass was going to see no new content because the game was still out for another year. And I've completely forgotten my point. Oh, yeah, sorry. So Blizzard... So obviously, if people hadn't got that annual pass, a lot of people would have unsubscribed. As many people probably did, because not everyone would have got the annual pass. They want to stop those people that unsubscribe when there's no new content. They want to keep them going. So that's what it's all about. It's about the people who don't stay subscribed. Hi, Sereno. Is it a big turn off for higher guilds to turn down people who have raided for only a few tiers? No. No. They will... you only need to have raided one tier to impress a high-end guild. And if you can show them that you've done it well, that's more than enough. You know. I mean, we took on when I was in my previous guild, a Shadow Priest in Nighthold, and Legion was his first thing of World of Warcraft. He didn't play. He wasn't even playing World of Warcraft at the start of Legion. He joined after Legion had come out. And yet in Nighthold we took him on. He was quite a good Shadow Priest. He learnt quite quickly. He'd played other MMOs. He'd played Star Wars The Old Republic as a high-end raider in that. So he knew the general thing about MMO raiding. And now he's in a much higher place guild as well. So, you know, you don't need very much at all. If you can show them some logs of, you know, relevant content where you're doing well and you're quick at learning, then you're fine. So in terms of what your chances in a top 100 guild, that will it's like anything. It's to do with supply and demand. Do you represent a low supply class or spec that is in high demand? So, for example, if you can play a rogue and you can play all the specs well, you are in high demand. Same thing with a warlock, say. If you play, you know, a Retribution Paladin, much less in demand. And this is a tier where we do really well, but there's loads of Ret Paladins. But yeah, generally speaking, if the positions are out there, then that's fine. How was the reaction of my YouTube video about how bad the class buffs are on BFA? Let's have a look. Hang on. It was quite a controversial one, wasn't it? Seemingly. Not sure how. Sometimes you know when you're doing a controversial video and then you just think, ah, bugger it. Do it anyway. Didn't think it would be in this one. So it got 111 comments, which is quite a lot more than average. 77 likes, 39 dislikes, which as a ratio again is a smaller like to dislike ratio than normal. You can play rogue, you do all specs. Well, there you go then. You can walk into places. Crying out for rogues. I still need to decide what I'm going to have as my main alt. I still keep thinking, because part of me keeps thinking, well, if I play a rogue, because I seem to think if I'm going to play a main alt and maybe keep it semi-geared, I don't fancy the chance of having to do loads of Mythic Plus still, but semi-geared. You know, maybe a range would be better to do. But, and then I think, well, maybe a rogue, because sometimes on a fight where you don't want lots of melee, sometimes rogues are in their own special class and you can sort of ignore them. Sometimes you can't. Oh, that is the other thing, Acerino, bear in mind, though. If you're heading towards top 100 guild, you may have to... No, I'm not saying all do, by the way, but there's going to be a higher prevalence of guilds who might expect you to have a decent alt for split raids. Druid's a good one. I don't like Druid healing, though. I've never really got on with being a resto druid. I don't like the idea of it. Like for healing, I quite like, obviously paladin, that's quite handy. Even though I haven't done any healing in Legion. Someone stupidly asked me to tank the other day as well. Was it last night? Might have even been last night. No, it wasn't. Was it? No, it was Sunday, that's right. It was Sunday because the raid was cancelled. And we did some Mythic Plus. And then we did a couple of Mythic Plus. We did a 14 and then did a 15. And then, did we? Or something, I can't remember. But anyway, then someone said that they wanted their alts to do a Mythic Plus as well. And so then they asked me, does my alt need it? I don't know, I'm not bothered about my alt. So I said, I'll just help boost them on the Paladin. And then before we knew it, we had no tank in the group. Wow. So they said, oh, and what I did foolishly, because I didn't realise at the time, I changed spec to prot, not to tank, but because at the moment I'm putting my AP on my prot, it's my prot weapons on like 74, so I might as well just get to 75, you know. So I was putting some AP on it, and they said, oh, are you going to tank then? Like, no, I'm just putting AP on it. Oh, but we ain't got a tank. So I had to tank a 17 Eye of Ashara, not having any idea what, because the problem with tanking is, you need to know what stuff is going to hit really hard, what to use a cooldown on. I had no idea. So there was at least 2 times in the fight where I just got insta-smacked because I didn't realise I was going to get insta-smacked and therefore I didn't use a cooldown. And there were other times when I was just using a cooldown because I like George. You know, I was using my Guardian of Ancient Kings because I missed George on my Ret Paladin. So, you know. But yeah, I've never got on with resto healing. Shaman healing, I'm fine with. Paladin healing, I'm fine with. Mistweaver I used to like, but I haven't tried that in Legion either, I have to admit. Priest, I don't know. Never really been a fan of priest healing either. Let's have a look. So Frozen. You think the reaction was the same when Preach Game was against Legendaries and Legion Alpha, and he was showered with hate from people who wanted Orange? I wouldn't say it's hate. I didn't receive hate. You know, when you receive dislikes on YouTube, that's not hate. I mean, a dislike on YouTube, you don't really know what it is. Like a like, you know what it is. A like is, this wasn't a waste of my time, please do more. So that's straightforward. A comment's even more straightforward. A dislike, you don't know what it is, because sometimes with a dislike, they mean, I don't agree with you. But sometimes with a dislike, they mean, this was a poor quality production. Or it might be something else entirely. Because sometimes I'll be on my video manager thing, and I'll suddenly see a dislike appear on several videos that I've put out recently. And it's obviously the same guy doing them all at once without even watching it, because they disliked something I did a bit ago, something like that. So sometimes it's that as well. So it doesn't mean anything. But I wouldn't say reading the comments I got any hate. There were some people saying, no, I like the class buffs, which is fine. I don't put things out there I don't view the internet as an echo chamber where people are just going to agree with me. It's good that people disagree with me. If nothing else, it gives me something to talk about in the mailbox. So yeah. You dislike my refugee crisis video. To Draenei have a home. It's a broken rocket. It's not even a tent. After all this time, they still haven't even made a camp. It's a broken rocket. It's two broken rockets, in fact, as far as I can tell. One bit on Azimist Isle. Well, they're on Azimist Isle, I suppose. But in two different places. Both of them stuck firmly in the ground. And when you say what are you talking about anyway? No, the Lightforged Draenei are on the Vindicar. The Draenei are on the Exodar. Two different things. But they're both refugees, because neither of them have got a city. If you don't even have a city, you haven't got a home. It's an entire race. If it doesn't even have one city, let alone the lands around it. Is scouring wild progress for a couple of ones that don't expect an alt as a necessity. Yeah, that will limit you. If you don't play an alt, it will limit you. There are some. But then what you're hoping for... The thing is that you've got bags of time, by the way. You don't have to be in a rush. If no more raids come out for Legion, and with each passing week it's less and less likely, I'd almost say now, well, it's got to be below 50% chance now. Probably quite a bit below, for honest. As a result, the next raid is probably not going to be until like September, October time. So, you know, there's loads of time to find the right guild. In fact, at the end of the last tier is the perfect time to be looking. Well, you don't have to start with top. You go where you're comfortable. Obviously, the last thing you want is to go to a guild and not be able to compete. That being said, sometimes people can sell themselves short. Sometimes people will think, you know, if you're in... Like at the moment, I don't even know what my guild rank is. I daren't look. Don't tell me. It's woeful, right? I know I could compete in a much higher place guild. But I also know that there are other people in my guild that could as well. You know, don't just assume that everyone is in the guild at the level that they deserve to be, so to speak. There's many reasons for being in the guild that you are in. It is a game, after all, for most people. But Crashland, who Crashland? What? The Vindicar with the what's the Lightforged Draenei can have something in common with the Draenei. They can all just live on broken bits of ship. Nice folk. Well, yes, that is another thing. If you're looking, the higher up you're looking, like if you're looking at a top 100 guild, I'm not going to say the majority, that's not true, but there's a higher chance of you ending up in a guild of arseholes, because there are some people whose attitude to raiding is entirely selfish. They will join the most, without being toxic themselves as well, by the way, they will join the most toxic group of players as long as they get fast progress. And And it may not be a pleasant environment, but some people don't care about that. And obviously some people contribute to the very unpleasant atmosphere. You compared your logs to some of the guilds you're looking at. That would be quite difficult to do because obviously kill times would be different. Also, bear in mind, jobs may be different as well. How, you know, the strategy's used. But, you know, if you're getting high percentiles, because that's the only time I would ever concern myself with percentiles. If I knew that I was looking for, I mean, actually, in the last few times I've left a guild, I haven't actually played anything. I've just sort of left, or said I was going to leave, that is, and not done anything about it. But if I was planning on leaving a guild and didn't want to tell them straight away, I would probably spend the next few weeks just, you know, playing for myself and trying to get the best percentiles I can. Because as much as I would love to tell you that the best guilds will look deeply into the logs and they'll see that you're doing mechanics right and all the rest of it, blah, 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 blah. The fact of the matter is that many of them won't. And the reason is not because they're stupid, but because they don't need to. If you're in a guild where, like, where you can easily replace people, or relatively, no, everyone has trouble replacing people in Legion because it's so tough. But relatively speaking, they don't need to look whether or not you can do mechanics or not because their process is simple. They will tell you what mechanics they want you to do. And if you don't do them, they will bench you. And if you repeatedly don't do them, you will fail your trial. It's that simple. Whereas in another guild lower down, where they can't really afford to bench people so much, if at all, they have to take more care over who they let in. Because if it's the sort of person that's going to play selfishly like that, they're a bit stuck. But, you know, a higher place guild will just go, get out of this raid. You know, stop whoring on that ad. We need you to hit the boss. Or stop, you know, when we call stop DPS on the boss, we mean it. Don't you carry on. And if, again, you don't, or if you get a load of people killed because you don't point the beam in the right place or something like that. So, yeah, they don't really look for it in the logs because they don't care. You know, they will tell you what to do. And if you don't do it right, they will bench you. Did I participate in the trial of style? No. I didn't do the first one because I was hearing that lots of people were just basically going in with groups and it was rigged, or there's a high incidence of that. And this time I just can't be asked. It might, I don't know whether it's still the same. It's actually more likely to still be doing that. I don't know. Or I don't know how prevalent it is. So no, I haven't done the trial of style. It's a shame because I was quite excited for that when it was on the PTR. But no, this time around I just haven't been bothered because I've had so much else to do as well. If it pops up, it's bound to pop up at some time when I happen to not be very busy, like during, say, summer or something like that. I'll probably give it a go. But yeah, when I've got other things to do, I'm not going to do that. Should just disable queuing as groups? Yes, they should. That would be a lot better. Oh my god! Hold on a minute. Someone's pinged me in Discord in the same. Oh. Oh. Oh, I'll need to read it later. There's been more interesting things said since I've left it. Oh. Anyway, never mind. If friends want to compete against each other, yeah, but the problem is that that's not what they're doing. They're not competing against each other. Because the thing is, there's a tangible reward, albeit obviously a cosmetic reward, but there's a tangible reward for winning. And whenever there's a reward for winning, there will be people who want to stack the odds in their favour. It reminds me very much of the very first LFR, which came at the end of Cataclysm, which was Dragon Soul. And what happened was when the loot dropped, it was all need-greed rolls. So what used to happen, because you could trade it as well, people used to go in groups and everyone who could would need on the loot, and then they would ask in their group, does anyone want this? And they would trade it to whoever. And there would be times where people, you know, if they just randomly needed on it and no one needed it in the group, well, they'd just vend it. So then no one got the benefit of it. Just a bit, you know. So when personal loot came in, I mean, you still had that then, because when personal loot came in, sometimes, yeah, still groups will go in And if anyone gets any loot that they don't want and someone else, one of their friends does, they'll pass it around. But at least you're not screwing someone else out of it by doing that, so that's fine. And it's the same thing here. People going into groups in Trial of Style are able to, you know, it's like, you know, it can be like, okay, we'll get you the wins, and then the next time we'll get this person the wins, and you can just share it out like that. You know. To be honest, if people want to compete against each other, there's nothing to stop people doing their own private Trial of Style. You know, it's basically a transmog competition. You know, Asm and Golden Preach do them, for goodness sake, on their channels. You don't need something in-game to be able to do that. So, yeah, allowing people to queue. The worst transmog wins just because the people vote for the worst. Oh, yes, the two. Yeah, well, that's... There's a... Oh, I don't know whether it's still on in the UK. It's like a really crap cooking type game show that's on in the UK. What's it called now? Shit, I can't remember it. Come Dine With Me, right? I don't know whether you have this in other countries or anything, but the premise of it is you get 4 idiots together, right? Because it's classed as reality TV. Reality TV means idiots. We need idiots, and we need lots of them. So you get 4 idiots, and the idea is each of them hosts a dinner party for the others, or maybe there's 5 of them, I can't remember. I haven't watched it for years. And they host a dinner party, and then what they do, in the name of entertainment, nothing else, they get everyone into like a little booth to do a video, like vlog of what they thought of it, so that everyone can basically bitch about each other. And then they've got to score it out of 10. So obviously, you know, people will score it tactically to give themselves the best chance of winning, because the winner gets like $2,000 or something, I don't know. It's so crap. It's such... They're usually useless as well. It's not even like you're talking about 5 people who can even cook. Sometimes you get like 1 person who can cook. They never win. And it's just... But that's what it's like there. You know, so you can... Even if it's not people going with a friend, it's come down with this quality. No, it's dreadful. Dreadful. The whole premise is awful. I was forced to watch it because with my ex, we went on holiday to a cottage in Wales, which is lovely. Oh no, it's Yorkshire, sorry, that was right, near where I live. Very nice places. I like, because that's my sort of holiday, just going out to the middle of nowhere. Obviously, yes, at the moment, I'd be without the internet, that's pretty bad. But in all other respects, if I must go on holiday, I would rather go on holiday in the middle of nowhere and have some peace and quiet. But the problem with it is that in Britain, it occasionally rains. So sometimes when it's raining, being outside in it is not that nice. So then you're watching telly for a bit. And it was on. And I had to watch this for like several days in a row. And I just gave up on humanity, essentially. But yeah, that was the point of it, was that people will vote tactically. They will always come up with some petty little reason why they're not going to give a good score to who was clearly the best. And they'll give an amazing score just to show they're not, you know, being too harsh. They will give a good score to someone who's clearly shit, on the assumption that everyone else will score it fairly, and then they'll probably win, because they consider themselves to be either equal best or second best. Of course, they're all doing it, unless they're an idiot. Chronicle Volume 3, yes, it wasn't leaked. It's on there. It's on Amazon. It's available for pre-order. Oh, hang on. This might be leaks, though. What? Garrosh is retconned to be the Mop Garrosh in Kata. Hang on. Mop Garrosh in Kata. That don't make any sense. What are you on about? And the Lich King outsmarts all the Dreadlaws and has copy-pasted Sargeras's motives. I don't even want to read Volume 3 if it's going to be like this. I'm going to have to, aren't I? Still no explanation why Night Elves joined the Alliance. Nah. Nor when Vol'jin's trolls left Stranglethorn Vale for Kalimdor. Well, I don't really know much about Vol'jin's trolls. Mightn't they have already been there? I mean, obviously, there's, you know, before the cataclysm, well, you know, not the modern cataclysm, but the Sundering, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, Stranglethorn Vale would have been right next to part of Kalimdor, although he's a bit higher up, isn't he? But I don't know anything about the Darkspear trolls, really. Have I ever seen Four in a Bed? No. I don't watch telly, really. I mean, this was... The only time I watch television is when I'm on holiday in a cottage in the middle of nowhere and it's either raining or we've come back from a day out. That's it. That's the only time I watch television. Even I have a television downstairs, but it's only for watching DVDs and Blu-rays. That's it. It's a screen. It doesn't... I don't even... Well, I know I can get a signal, but I don't watch it ever. Well, I say not ever. Some sporting events I will watch. Although there's few enough of those on terrestrial telly now. And I don't pay for any television package. So I don't know about television, really. I'm just giving that one as an example of some god-awful, terrible form of reality TV. All I know is that every form of reality TV I've ever watched since, and I would say recently, there used to be reality TV on. Like when I was a kid, reality TV was actually reality TV. It was real people. And now it is actually, they deliberately try and find idiots, and they also try and find people who are bound to kick off with each other. You know, the most incompatible personalities possible. Why would we need an explanation of the Dark Spear leaving? I don't think it's an explanation that it was saying about. It's just in terms of when is a... I mean, the Warcraft Chronicles are supposed to be historical documents, and it might be nice, I suppose, for people to know that. I don't know. But I'm just saying I don't know anything about the Dark Spear at all. Other than their standards have come right down. Because the trolls used to own Azeroth, and now they sit on a beach. Oh, do you know, Big Brother, I tried to say, I couldn't believe how ignorant my students are. I tried to say today, what was I saying? I was talking about something from that. He mentioned something, and I said, oh, that sounds like something out of 1984. Oh, no, I said from 1984. And he thought I meant the year. He says, why, what happened in 1984? And I said, no, the book, 1984. And he was like, it's not like he hadn't read it. That's fine. I know the majority of people haven't read it. Everyone should be made to read it, but the majority haven't read it. But he wasn't even familiar with it. So I said, what, have you never heard of Big Brother? And again, I should have known better, but he was thinking about the television programme. I thought, oh. So I don't even try saying Room 101, because that was also a television programme in the UK at one point. The other troll tribes forced them off the mainland and their island sunk. Aren't they on Sentient Island now or something? Isn't that what they're on? Or is it a different island? I know nothing about them. No, it's not an action book. It's supposed to be 1984. Basically, it was written just after World War II, and you know, it was written by someone who was scared shitless, George Orwell, of the rise of fascism. So it was written as an alternate history, as if fascism took over the world, basically. You know, it was basically as if the Nazis, not the Nazis won, but let's say you had clever Nazis who knew what they were doing and took over or at least part of the world, where everyone's actions were monitored all the time. Or at least they thought they were monitored all the time, and people disappeared if they didn't behave in the way that they should, and all the rest of it. And they were even changing the language. The really scary thing in 1984 was there's quite a few things you can look at now, like people were taught to accept contradictory facts as both being true. You could believe two things that were completely contradictory, and you'd have to accept that both were true. And and the worst one was they were coming up with this system, it's called Newspeak, of eliminating words that weren't needed. And the idea, the ultimate aim of this process was to eliminate any words in the English language which could allow any rational thoughts about dissent. So they'd only allow them to use words that were needed for them to basically behave like slaves. So any words that, like bad, for example, they'd get rid of the word bad and evil from the whole lexicon. So you'd still be able to sort of think, but you won't be able to think in those words, and therefore those thoughts would be more difficult to have. But anyway, it is a book well worth reading. It's not a massive book either. You know, you can easily read it in a few sessions. But anyway, that's enough for Literary Corner. What has been happening in the world of Warcraft? Not a lot. Again, I didn't do a news flash, a WoW flash, sorry, last week. There's nothing. There was no news. There's no news. I don't think there's any news this week either. There's like nothing, apart from stuff from BFA Alpha, but then that's more into sort of spoilery stuff. What about the Oscars? I have no thoughts on the Oscars. To me, the Oscars is just basically the only reason the Oscars exists is because actors, by their very nature, need to be appreciated. So it just spawns from that. It's a way of flattering a load of people who live to be flattered. And I have no time for it. You know, they already get all the adulation and wealth for basically being talking props. So if they want to have their own little ceremony where they give each other a gold statue, that's fine. But it's of no interest to me at all. You know, if I watch a film, I will know whether I appreciate the acting or not. How am I finding Mythic Plus now? I'm only doing 50. No, I'm never pushing. Like last night I did a 17 only because some people wanted their alts to do a Mythic Plus, and I said, all right, I'll do that as well. I only need it for the cash. It's not that I don't like Mythic Plus. I don't like being made to do it. I don't like this compulsion to do it. But if, let's say I was about and some people in the guild said, oh, I'd like to do some Mythic Plus. Let's say someone said, I have never turned down, if I'm free, I've never turned down doing a key. So the only times I've ever pushed Mythic Pluses ever before in the expansion is not because I've wanted to, it's because someone's asked me. So if someone said, oh, I've got this plus 20, would you like to come along? If I'm free, I'll go, yeah, sure. I won't turn anyone down. Or no one in the guild anyway. I'll turn a pug flat down. That's not in the guild. But that's it. So it's not. So I think, yeah, Mythic Plus I think is a great system. It's just that for me, World of Warcraft, it's the raiding. That's it. If the raiding we went crap all of a sudden, then for me, World of Warcraft, I would suddenly become much more casual, and I would be splitting my time between World of Warcraft, you know, and other games. It is very different from raiding as well. And it's a nice activity, I think. I think it's an ideal activity if there's a group of friends who play, preferably 5, preferably with 1 being a tank, 1 being a healer, and 3 being DPS. But it's an ideal activity for that sort of thing. You know, ideal. I don't want to do a plus. I can probably solo a +2, can't I? What could I solo, do you think? I don't know. No new build for the alpha this week. I don't know, there might be. There has been. There's been a new build every week since it became open. So I think there probably will be a new build this week. It doesn't necessarily mean that we know what's in it. It doesn't necessarily mean that the next zone will open up. It doesn't necessarily mean, you know, that loads of changes will come in. But there were technically 2 builds last week, but one was a really small one. But if there is one, it can be on different days. They haven't released the build on the same day when You know, there was one day when it was a Tuesday, and there was one day when it was a Friday, and there was another day when it was like something else. Can't remember. So yeah, we've no idea. I think they just bring them out when it's ready. To you, challenge mode dungeons were way better than Mythic Plus. Equality in gear because of scaling. Yeah, but I didn't think it was really all that equal, because the problem with the scaled gear is it punished people who needed haste more. Like okay, I didn't really do it as a Ret Paladin, but I could appreciate that for a Ret Paladin, it would be worse than it is for some classes. I'm not saying all, because you know, one time you're raiding, you're doing your raiding, you're getting used to a certain flow for your rotation. Then suddenly you go there. So say, I get the same thing in time walking, but in time walking it doesn't matter, it's easy. And all of a sudden your flow is disrupted because things aren't coming off cooldown as quickly as your muscle memory thinks they should be. I'd be as well geared, but I wouldn't necessarily be as well suited, because, again, I might be more badly affected by that than someone who maybe doesn't have as much haste. Oh, sockets. Oh, yeah, I know. People used to farm like crap gear with loads of sockets, didn't they? No, I think Mythic Plus is a better. I think it's certainly a more popular system. Plus, WoW is a very loot-driven game, so you know the rewards on offer, I think, make it more suitable as well. What's that? No, certainly not all specs are equally good in Mythic Plus now. Some trinkets were quite overpowered as well. I mean, the thing is though, with Mythic Plus, I think the argument comes, you don't need it to be equalised that way, because people that do Mythic Plus a lot can also end up with very good gear as well. And there are sets in Mythic Plus that are suitable as well, which you can get. So it doesn't matter that you're not a raider. Obviously, it would be nice if you had access to tier as well, I guess. But it's not essential. I'm just gonna. What's this up? What is this? Oh, someone's pinging me again. Anyway, never mind. So, trinket. Yes. Well, from this raid, there are some trinkets that are nice. Yes, that's not always been the case. Actually, no, they're not that. Tuma Sargeras was the best ones for trinkets, though. Tuma Sargeras ones were very good. I mean, this one, actually, when you think about it, for Mythic Plus, so I suppose it depends on your class and spec. For mine, they're not that great for Mythic Plus, actually. Are there any that are any good for Mythic? Oh, I suppose Gorshlak's Legacy, but that never drops. I keep forgetting about that trinket. I've only seen it drop once, and that was right at the beginning. I haven't seen it since. But Tuma Sargeras has some very nice ones. The glaives were very nice. The ones from the first boss was very nice. Even though obviously it'd be more use on bosses than trash, Mistress Azine was pretty good, because that also had the advantage. If you did use it on a trash mob and you killed it quite quickly, the cooldown would come off much more quickly, and that would be quite useful. I mean, even the Engine of Eradication for Mythic Plus would have been better than it was, I think, for raiding, personally. With sets gone in BFA, feels like raiding might be getting less attention. No. It is certainly not getting less attention. Ian Hazacos has made it really clear that the best gear, including Azerite armor, the best Azerite armor is going to come from raiding, and the best of the best Azerite armor is going to come from mythic raiding. So there will still be gear from the raids that will be superior because it's the premier content. They, you know, it's not just that that's what they used to say. They still say it now. It's their premier content. It's a loot-driven game, so they're going to make sure that that drops the best stuff. Because although I say until you can get really good gear in Mythic Plus, which you can, item level wise you can, but of course you won't do as much damage as someone in, say, the best like tier gear alongside the best other gear as well. Will Mythic Plus pushing only be for Mythic Raiders with weapons not being to Titan Forged tiers, not forging? No, I mean, to be fair, what would be ideal, but I don't know how realistic this is if raiding drops the best gear but was of most value in raids, I suppose. But I still suspect that if you want to really push and get the world firsts plus whatever, plus 20 odd in something, then probably what you're going to need is to be Mythic Raiders as well to get hold of the best Azerite armor. Wasn't there that guy who does solo stuff? Didn't he get a plus 22 quarter stars? I saw that in the last week. Didn't do it in time, obviously, soloing it. But still, soloing a plus 22 quarter stars pretty good. On high fortified King Ross trinket could be nice for certain ones. I've never found it being all that brilliant for me because I have that trinket. I've not found it as good as I'd think it would. Chronicle Volume 3, Alliance kills Lady Vash. Of course we do. The Horde Magtheridon's lair. What? Piss off. I distinctly remember killing Magtheridon before any Horde guild on my realm at the time. Long before them. So I think they might have got that a bit wrong. I shall send a letter to the publishers. Now the raids, there will always be the raids will always be the premier content. It has to be, and Ian Hazacostas himself said that it will still reward the best, and mythic raiding specifically will still reward the best stuff. Yes, that's it, Vil. Mionello. What would be best is that the raid drops loot that give plus 5,000 strength. I hope you need to squish that. 5,000 strength will be quite a lot in BFA with the squish. That'll be doubling your strength when you're in a raid like the trinket today. The thing is, okay, when As talks about, you know, some gear maybe doing better in raids, it doesn't want to be too artificial because there'll be some people who will raid for the best gear, but, you know, they still want to use that gear outside of raids as well and benefit from it. They could make it so Mythic Plus gear gets nerfed inside raid. No, they don't need to do it the other way around. No. Mythic Plus gear. If Mythic Plus gear was nerfed for raids, you would massively reduce the number of people who will do it. Because let's make no bones about it. There are dedicated Mythic Plus players, sure. But the majority of people who do the very high keys on Mythic Plus are also raiders. You know, and they want the gear for raiding. They're doing it for raiding purposes. Like, there's people who push it now. And they're not doing it for the AP. They're doing it for the gear. In fact, what did someone in my guild get? We've got a boomkin who was trying to farm more souls to get the ring where you move faster when you're dead, so that they can basically, when they kill themselves on Argus, can go around grabbing all the orbs. I think. Oh, the neck, that is, sorry. Increase your movement speed while dead by 30%. They actually got one. It's not a very high item level, though. That's the problem with it. 885, that's a bit crap. But at least they've got it. Maybe they'll get a better one from their cache tomorrow. Yes, that's it, yeah, the one. Well, I don't know which boss it drops from. You don't really care when it's Mythic Deer. It just drops from a cache at the end of it all. Doesn't matter which actual boss it drops from. Considering how hard some of the high keys are, it would be reasonable to have Mythic Plus gear scaled to equal to Mythic Raid gear. No. They can't do that. Because, like they've said themselves, you're just thinking about it from the point of view of the difficulty of a single player. But for a start, the mechanics are not that difficult. What makes it difficult is there's just the damage gets too much at certain points. But the other thing is this. Like Ian Hazakostas himself said this is his reasoning for it, that raiding takes a lot more organisation than a Mythic Plus. A Mythic Plus can be done on a casual basis by just grabbing 5 people together. Raiding can't be done like that. Mythic raiding especially can't be done like that. And you need to have, you know, basically a staff, like a roster. And there's a lot of organisation in managing that. And as a result, it needs to be providing you the best stuff. They're never going to put it on parity. I am okay with the best Mythic Plus gear approaching the standard of Mythic Plus. Sorry, Mythic Raiding gear. I'm fine with it, say, being between Heroic and Mythic. But they can't actually put it as an actual parity. Because this is what happened when Raiding split into 25 man and 10 man, or because when it first split up, their 10 man was clearly the easier one. When Blizzard tried to say that it was of equal worth, instantly loads and loads of people went 10 man. Now there were those who said, "Oh, I like 10 man because it's nice and cozy." Blah, 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 blah. There's a small number of such people who may have been telling the truth. The vast majority did it because it's just straight up easier to manage 10 man raiding than 25 man raiding. So, Pride has pretty much mandatory in high key. Yes, I mean, I will sometimes. I haven't really taken Pride as in Mythic Plus. I don't push high keys. I will occasionally take my cheat death braces if I'm not feeling a bit. Because the problem with not doing very many is I don't really know the dungeons very well either. We did God, what's it called now? Cathedral. Not even a high key cathedral, but because I do it like once every few months, I don't remember what anything does. So I'm actually in mortal danger when I do cathedral, even if it's not a very high key. And I have never done Seat of the Triumvirate, ever. I've done it on Heroic, where I basically soloed it. Because I pretty much did solo it, like, because people kept leaving, so I kept running off and killing stuff. Thoughts on high-level Mythic Plus players calling for BOP to be removed? Are they calling for it to be removed? It may actually be removed, by the way, though. I've heard that separately. I didn't know it was anything to do with that. I don't, give me something useful then, I don't care. Put Divine Shield on a shorter cooldown. Obviously, they're not getting rid of BOP and not compensating me. I don't care about BOP. I don't think it's all that great. I'd be quite happy to lose BOP in favour of some more useful utility. Absolutely. Though you can see problem in the near future, PvE and PvP players used to argue about balance, hence why PvP talents exist. You can see the same thing happens between Mythic Raiders and Mythic Plus. I think you might be overestimating how many players there are that are serious Mythic Plus players that are not also raiders. I think the majority, obviously I could try and dig into it, but I can't say for certain. I would guess that the majority of serious Mythic Plus players, not all of course, but the majority, I don't mean like 90%, but maybe 60, 70% will also be raiders. So I don't think you'll get that. Oh yeah, Bop is certainly very good in dungeons. You made me laugh again. When I was tanking that Eye of Ashara as well, we're on the first boss, and I sort of, you know, grabbed the ads onto me and they killed them. It's not my fault they killed them, but I did sort of grab the caster ad onto me. Anyway, that's not the point. When the thing came out, the arrow thing, and it's going to impale someone, and normally what they do is stand behind one of the mobs, so they take the brunt of it, but that mob wasn't there. So what I'm paladin, I'll just bop them. But a certain someone persuaded me to change my tank, because I didn't know what talent stickers protection. So I had some from the last time I tanked. And someone persuaded me to change them. And I misread what they said. And I thought I had Cavalier and I changed it to Blessing of Spell Ward. No. Was it? The one that changes Bop into magic damage reduction anyway. Stuff. So anyway, I'd forgotten about this then. So I used my Bop on them. And it did nothing. It just killed them. Because it was not actually protecting them from physical damage. But yeah, Spell Ward. I didn't mean to do that. Anyway. I was just in a rush, that's all. I should try to... No, I'm not tanking LFR. Gordon Bennett. I don't even like doing LFR. But yeah, Bop is really good in dungeons. But then we're really slow. And, you know, so that makes up for that, apparently, according to Blizzard. But no, I have no intention of trying to tank LFR. Because even if I knew what to do as a tank on any raid boss, which I don't, because I don't tank them. When I last tanked, which was in WoD, I did tank some LFRs in WoD. You end up having a taunting war with the other tank. So what will happen is a mechanic will come on. You'll go, okay, I need to taunt it off them now. So you taunt it off them, and then they'll instantly taunt it back off you. And I'm not just talking about super well-geared ones who could probably solo tank the whole thing without any bother, which is still stupid to do that. I mean people who then ended up dying as a result of it. So now I can't be doing with fighting over another tank. Horde plus Corona also kills. Okay. They're going quite up to date then, aren't they? If they're doing Bastion of Twilight in it. Oh, you did a plus 22 seat last week. Well, that's not... Well, I have no idea. I don't even know the bosses in seat. You know, I did it on Heroic, largely soloed in the first week of, like, when it was there. And it was... So I don't know anything, because the bosses rolled over. I didn't learn any mechanics. So I'd have no chance. It supposedly covers Warcraft 3 to Cataclysm, does it? Mismatched Mayhem. So basically, the purpose of that trial of style is to come up with something that only a clown would wear. You've had the odd code tank on Mishas who taunts back when you got the debuff. Yeah, well, I mean, obviously that must happen all the time. Constantly see the purple lightning on LFR Mistress when I had to do that. Some people use full sets. What, on Mismatched Mayhem, dear me? I shouldn't think you should win with a full set on anything. Some sets look quite awful. Evening, Donashimon. What, in the trial of style, or just some sets full stop? I mean, most sets bound to. I suppose it's just in there for different tastes. This is why all my Transmog sets are all from either vanilla or TBC. It's not that there aren't any nice ones since then. It's just that I don't think any of them are as good as the ones from vanilla. Well, the ones I've selected from vanilla TBC. Vanilla and TBC both had bad ones as well. Like vanilla had tier 1, which is Lawbringer, which was horrendous. Utterly horrendous. On a male human at any rate, should we say. Dwarfs pulled it off actually somehow. Somehow dwarfs managed to pull it off. But human males and obviously the tier 3 was dreadful. It made you look like Buck Rogers' retarded cousin. So, but you know, Judgment was a very good set. The Anchorage set was actually very good. Not very paladin, but it was a very good set. Even the helm on that one looks really good. I sometimes use that. And then TBC. The first set actually looks quite good. It's not very fancy, but it's very good. The tier 4. Then, of course, the tier 6 looks amazing. And then from vanilla, you've got the PvP set as well. That's what I'm with at the moment. Now, the tier 5 was a bit strange. Made you look like a Power Ranger. But I had to wear it for Ret. I didn't wear it for Holy because actually the spell damage, the set bonuses, I could easily do without for healing. But the Ret bonuses were really good on the tier 5. Judgment was very nice, but not the helm. The Paladin helms have tended to be pretty bad. Helms in general. In fact, I remember when I found out, because I didn't know for ages that you could hide helm, because I never really looked through my options, if I'm honest. When I found out you can hide helm, I was so happy. I was ecstatic, because I didn't realise you could. Factions clearly got separate raids in Chronicle Volume 3. Well, they would have to, because otherwise they'd have to have been working together, you know. Otherwise, or else you create the situation where, so let's say the Alliance goes steaming into Bastion of Twilight, chop Cho'Gall down, and then leave, and then Cho'Gall's there going, right, it's only a flesh wound, and then the Horde come in and chop his head off. Obviously, that's not realistic. Oh, you still wish hide helm be an option, not a transmog thing? Ah, well, you see, I have a yak, so I can transmog on the move. As long as I'm in a place where I can mount, then I can also transmog. It is a little bit awkward in raids, I'll grant you. But usually you just sort of need to just get somewhere where you can mount. There are a few places in some raids. And get yourself transmogged quick. The factions were at war, so it makes sense. Well, yes. They can't have been working on the same thing. Although, I suppose with Dragon Soul, of course, if you were an Alliance player, you saw... Well, we saw the Horde airship be destroyed by Deathwing. I imagine the reverse was true for Horde players, that it was the... Well, I know it must have been. That it was the Alliance ship that I assume was destroyed. The Lich King did nothing wrong. Is that... I mean, I'll read it. When it comes out, when is it coming out? Is it the end of this month? No. Yes? I think it is. Let me just check. Hold on. Warcraft Chronicle Volume 3, 29th of March. So basically, I'll get it for Easter. I'll order it at Easter, for Easter. When is Easter? Oh, actually, do you know what? Hold on. When do I... 1, 2... I finished work on the 28th of March. So 29th of March is my first day of my holiday. So if I order it, it'll arrive on the first day of my holiday. Oh, I can read it. That's all right. For once, they're actually bringing something out when I start my holiday. Albeit a book I don't want to read. But I will read it. I'll have to read it. Blackhorn is always fought on the Alliance country. Is it? How does that make sense then if they're against each other? Because I never did it as Horde. I've only done it as Alliance. So they were working together for Dragon Soul, were they? We're back to being allies versus Deathwing. Alright then, fine. Fine. I hated Blackhorn. Or Blackthorn, wasn't it? I didn't like that fight at all. The problem with it was that as a melee, you had to get quite close to the edge of the boat to be able to engage those drakes. And there was no invisible wall. If you went too far, you were off. Right? And it was alright for if you had a charge, if you were a warrior, you'd be fine. But as a paladin, especially when you had to be quick, it wasn't like you could just edge your way up there. Because DPS check was a thing, you know, you had to get on it quick. Didn't like it. I mean, I only went off a couple of times, but it was always deeply embarrassing. You've got a question about lore. Well, okay, I shall see. Or we'll see if someone knows anyway. But is the Lich King an actual person, or is it a spirit that just corrupts whoever wields Frostmourne? Right. It used to be an orc called Ner'zhul, who basically betrayed the Legion. Or he wasn't, you know, he was sticking up for his people, to be fair. And he was tortured by Kil'jaeden until he was stripped of basically everything. So at the point at which the Lich King is on Azeroth, yes, he's basically just a spirit of the former shaman Ner'zhul. But he used to be a guy, or an orc. But yeah, the Lich King at that point was basically a spirit, in a way. But then when he fused with Arthas, then, you know, there was I mean, they merged, so to speak. But then it was a physical thing again, because Arthas was still a physical thing. Oh yeah, I've heard about that, Serial Prime. Yeah, Blizz plays the Lich King both ways. Sometimes an amalgamation, sometimes separate cells. Because you know what someone said to me? So in the book, basically, it makes out that Arthas dominated Ner'zhul, and that it's basically Arthas mostly in control. Whereas that is not the impression that I got from playing the story in the game. But anyway. End of the world sounds like important business. Yes. I mean, if anything's going to get the Horde and the Alliance to work together, the end of the world would be high on that list. And it could be argued that the greatest threat to the Azeroth has generally been from Sargeras. And with Sargeras taken care of, maybe, you know, they all feel safe enough that at least the world is safe to, like, have their own private battles again, even though we all know the Horde's going to start it. Theme, Dark and Deadly, would like to see a Dark Paladin. The thing is, they could do that. Like, people keep asking for, like, Void Elf Paladins. Void Elf Paladins cannot be a thing, because the Paladins would never touch, like, shadow stuff. But, let's say you introduced into the lore the concept of a Dark Paladin, a Void Paladin. Well, it could work exactly the same as a Paladin. It could, to all intents and purposes, be the Paladin class, only you just change the graphics of the icons and change the name of some of their abilities so that they, you know, so that it does shadow damage instead of holy damage. And you don't have to do anything mechanics-wise different. It's the same class. You just have to create new icons and new spell names. And it would be the same. So they could do that if they wanted to. You know, that's not a barrier to having Void Elf Paladins. It's just that, you know, they would probably think that was it's not that much hassle, but they would probably think it's a bit of hassle just for the sake of allowing a single race to play that particular class. In the Arthas novel, Arthas traps Nezul in Frostmourne. Yes, that's what I took from it. It's a very long time ago now. Yes, for the Frost Death Knight artifact quest, where we have to deal... Well, we deal with both Nezul and Arthas as well. But this is the thing. So in that storyline, it's Arthas that basically dominates Nezul. But that's not the impression I got from playing the game. But, you know. Isn't a Dark Paladin a DK? Well, possibly, except it didn't become that, did it? I didn't say death magic. I said shadow magic. You know, a Void Elf Paladin would use shadow magic. You still think it's the goblins who start the war out of greed? We know it's not. They released that prologue for, you know, for the book. We know it's Sylvanas. She wants to start the war. The goblins actually, if anything, avoid war because it's costly. They'd rather just screw everyone else out of it. But yeah, this Warcraft Chronicle 3, it's got a picture of Tyrande on the front. It's not the one I would choose to have. Especially as if someone's saying here that they don't even really explain much about the Night Elves and the Alliance, why would they put Tyrande on the front? Oh, Medan is going to be officially in, is he? Oh, what are you playing at me? Medan is on page 404 and the book is around 222 pages. Hilarious. You got me excited then. War boosts the economy short term, though. Only if you're selling the arms. But as they're part of the Horde, they can't just sell the arms to both sides and profit. They will be on one side in the war. Which also means, I mean, obviously they can't exactly sell their arms to the Horde at a profit because they're part of the Horde. They will basically have to provide it, if anything, at cost. Which I doubt that would impress the goblins either. But I don't know. Blizzard haven't really explained the economic policy of the Horde or released their annual budget on defence. Well, you say you're behind on lore, so is everyone else until they bring some bloody stuff out in the game. They need to start explaining a few things soon. Not in a month's time, basically something has to come into the game. Because, you know, Antorus will have had its 4 or 5 months in about another month's time. Even Garrosh wasn't evil enough to not pay for weapon production. Oh. Do we know he paid for it? If they're selling Azerite to the Alliance behind the Horde's back, I don't think they'd be doing that. Well, some goblins will. The thing is, I mean, obviously, you know, the goblins that are part of the Horde are not all the goblins. There are other goblin factions as well. But, you know, what goblins are they? What are they even called? The ones that came from Kazan or whatever. You know, that you can't see them selling to the Alliance. I think they just allied themselves with the Horde, if anything at all, because they were geographically close. They washed up basically in Horde territory. But I don't know. Someone else would have to say to it. A lot of Horde lore that you got in game, I don't really know about because I haven't played Horde much. Oh, he did underpay them. Well, isn't that similar to slavery then for a Goblin? Because a Goblin will never knowingly be underpaid unless they're forced to it. So that's a bit like... Do you know what that's like? That's like forcing... Well, that's basically that's slavery because that's forcing someone to do some work but without agreeing the remuneration. What the hell? What's going on? Anyway, sorry, something weird's going on in Discord. The Alliance was hostile to survivors of Kazan, wasn't it? Because they were escorting a captured thrall. So the cartel basically joined the Horde who helped them a little. Oh, I see. No. I wouldn't want to try and get myself into discussions like this on a regular basis. I don't know enough. Who was escorting a captured thrall? The Alliance. Ah. How did the Horde help them? Other than just not trying to kill them. I played through this starter area for Goblins, but I didn't really play much further than that. Oh, they got them off the island, okay. Because I seem to remember just being washed up on another island. But unless that's the island you were thinking of. Oh, that's fine. It was more straightforward for Worgen. I actually played through that properly. Because I have some Worgen characters. Gave them supplies and helped them beat Gallywix. Isn't Gallywix their boss? Who's the boss of the Goblins? Thought it was Gallywix. Offered them a place to stay. Don't they stay in Ashara? Where there was no one staying at the time other than some Murlocs. Gallywix is complicated, is he? Thrall reappointed him as trade prince. Oh, maybe I'll have to play it through again. Find out what the deal is. Quite like the idea of a Goblin rogue. I'll play it through at some point. Let's just I don't know. I could watch it. I could, actually just play it through at some point. I mean, there's going to be times between now and BFA coming out. I know I've got like alpha, beta stuff to be doing as well, but there's going to be times where the amount of new stuff coming out slows down. I mean, for example, give an example. I've now sort of done the quests, or the ones that work, for Alliance and Horde that's available on BFA at the moment. I've sort of done quite a bit of stuff on the Ret Paladin. So, you know, when the raid was cancelled, I decided to do some alpha stuff. I just ended up doing some stuff on an Arms Warrior. But I was 50-50 whether I do that or just do some levelling in live. So there's going to be times when the same sort of thing holds true. And I just end up, because I still need to level up that priest. And, you know, I could possibly do some other stuff as well. I still need to decide what I'm going to spend my upgrade boosts on. Like, I think I should do a horde. I don't want to level a horde all the way up. But what I do want to do is I want to level a horde player up. And I want to, so that I can get a Zandalari Druid in BFA at some point. Not early on, obviously, but at some point. Have I tried other classes apart from Paladin? Yes, I tried Hunter very briefly, not all the way through a zone, but Hunter, Mage, and Arms Warrior I've given a go with. Preach was complaining a bit about the unfinished Alliance zone and said there wasn't anything to do in Alpha. There's always something to do if you want to test it. If all you want to do is show off what's new in it, then yes, at the moment there hasn't been anything added for, well, a week. Actually, it's not that long. And there might be a new build coming out with some new stuff now. I don't think it's really a complaint. But yeah, there's still stuff you could test. I mean, you know, there's always stuff you can test if you want to be useful. There's bugs reports to be filled in. You know, there's some bugs I've noticed I haven't filled reports in for that I probably should get around to. Assuming they read them. I've done thoughts on the zones. I like both the zones for the Alliance. They're both nice and they're both different enough. But the difference is more in terms of the quests rather than the ambience. I would say that both zones visually feel very similar. But in terms of the quests, the Horde get the more interesting quests. So the Horde quests are better. Even though it's full of trolls, and I'm not a big fan of troll stuff. He stopped because it was too boring. No. Boring in what way? What was boring about it? And when I say the Horde stuff is more interesting, I don't mean that the Horde quests are more enjoyable. I mean that story-wise, it's more lore heavy than the Alliance stuff. The Alliance storylines are not very lore heavy. You know, it's like one zone is very witch hunter stuff. Another zone is sort of piratey stuff. BFA makes you want to reroll for leveling a Horde at day one, zone-wise. Well, I mean, I'm not keen on trolley stuff. But it's just that there's some, without wanting to go through spoilers, there's some major lore implications to the troll storylines, and there isn't really anything special about the Alliance ones. They're enjoyable enough, but that's about it. Preach just said that it was just boring quests of collects this, kill that. It was it was the same variety of stuff to do as on the Horde side. It wasn't just kill that and do that. It was exactly the same mix of types of quests as the Horde stuff. most quests are kill something and go back to a thing. Occasionally, you also get quests that involve, you know, some vehicle type quest, which you get on both sides as well. You know, but most quests take the form of kill this and go back. Whether it's kill a certain number of things or kill stuff to collect a certain number of things, you get that on both of them. So I think it's probably just a case of trying to rationalise he just feels that he prefers the Horde ones. But in terms of the mechanics of the quests, they're the same. And we don't get to know at the moment which are the best cinematics. I thought Balula was trying to... Because I saw one of his videos and it was talking about the cinematics. I thought, that's a bit strange because we haven't got the cinematics yet. And then I noticed in his title it had cinematics in inverted commas. So I think what it was... Because what they do, people who've watched me stream, is when a cinematic's supposed to happen, they put a description of the cinematic on it. So sort of tell you what's going on in it. Even though sometimes it's a little bit, you know, tongue-in-cheek. Sometimes, like a cinematic thing will say, an awesome thing's happens here. And that's basically it. You haven't played since Frozen Throne expansion. What, Warcraft 3? Hang on a minute. Oh, you mean Wrath of the Lich King. So I thought you meant literally Warcraft 3. Would I suggest Demon Hunter or Monk as more fun, and why? They're both quite enjoyable in their way. What I would say is, for Demon Hunters, they both play true to what you would expect of them. So the Monk sort of feels like a monk should, probably. And the Demon Hunter is very flitting about a lot. There's lots of, you know, the movement in it is very, you know, they need movement within their sort of DPS. And it changes quite a lot in terms of what they're doing. So they both play well for the archetype. So it sort of depends. If you prefer a monk style, then you probably won't be disappointed with how the monk plays. And if you like the idea of a demon hunter, you probably won't be disappointed with how the demon hunter works. Assuming you mean for DPS. If you mean for other roles, then no. Haven't really played the other roles in Legion. Well, not much anyway. Hi, Adrian. Am I planning to do a things I want or don't want to see in vanilla? I don't know. Did I already do one of those? I can't remember. I may not have done. I at some point will be talking about that. I was hoping to wait until Blizzard said something themselves that's new, but I don't know what that is. Because I would have expected them to have got the team together now. But they haven't actually said anything, have they? Yes, Monk can play all three roles and Demon Hunters can't play a healer. But they can play the other two. So from what you've seen, you've got one city zone, a Duskwood zone, and a zone with green fields. They're both fairly... No, I don't know. Not much in the way of green fields. Horde City is El Dorado jungle. Yes, I would certainly agree with that. Swamp zone with Aztec culture. Well, the Vulpera we haven't really got to yet. We've seen the odd Vulpera and snake person, but we've not seen a lot of that. But for me, the both of the Alliance zones seemed very similar. They were both very sort of Hammer horror type landscapes. They aren't going to talk about vanilla till BFA releases. I don't know, maybe. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking. All I do know is that they will be in trouble if they don't announce something ahead of the next BlizzCon. They can't let it go completely dead. And BFA, I mean, I suppose they've got a bit of time if it's immediately after BFA. But I would still have thought they'd want to say something about it. There's plenty of people that are not interested in BFA that are interested in Classic. Any idea when in Alpha you'll all start getting a look and feel for Azerite armor? I have no idea. The fact that Wowhead were able to data mine some Azerite stuff like in the last day suggests that they're slowly starting to put stuff in for it. So maybe in a next week or two, possibly. But I don't know. It's coming very, very slowly. I don't understand why it's coming very, very slowly either. Serial Prime, yeah, basic UI elements for Azerite armor went in last round. I don't know about that either, because I can't do anything. Well, I'll tell you what did come in last round. We can now use Azerite to boost our necks. But there's no way of tracking it as far as I can tell. And there's no way of interacting with the neck. How's data mine work as a sort of hack? It's not a hack because they're allowed to do it. Blizzard are okay with it. It's just what happens is with the alpha, as soon as, you know, in order for us to be able to play it, we have to be able to download the game files onto our computer. So what you need is a program that's capable of understanding those game files and turning it into a thing. Now, there's certain things that are in those game files that are not enabled in the game, but they're in the files, and so they can be switched on whenever Blizzard wants, without us having to download more stuff. So there's always stuff hidden in the game files, which means that you know, they can sort of say, oh, there's some items here which we might not be able to access because the content that drops it might not be accessible, but it's just in the files. But they're just not, you know, they're not enabled, so they're not possible to test them directly, but they can still see them. So it's not hacking, they're not changing anything in the files, they're just reading them. You're noticing a bulk of alpha testers getting either bored or frustrated as there's nothing really to do. Well, when you say a bulk of alpha testers, I'd strongly suggest you're talking about the people who just want to do it on their channel, because there's loads of stuff. I talk about the fact that, you know, I've done all the quests and stuff like that I can do, which is true. But that's not the only... We're supposed to be testing. I know the people, like the influencers, are in there for marketing purposes. You know, Blizzard give them the key so that they can market it for them, and they want to do it so they can market themselves, which is fine. So from that point of view, sure. But I think the majority of testers, people who are testing stuff, because you can do things in different ways. So there's plenty to do if you're actually testing stuff. And Preach, I'd be surprised at him saying that there's nothing to do, because given that he's someone who tries to produce guides for all specs, has he gone through all those zones as all 36 specs? I doubt it. So, I don't know, you know. I don't know. No artifact knowledge might mean Azerite has a weekly cap. Maybe. The problem I come back to is because Blizzard did... Ian Hazakostas did talk about a weekly cap before Legion came out. Something up in my earphones. I don't know. Someone tell me if you hear a funny sound. And one of his reasons for it was nothing to do with artifact knowledge as such. It was because he envisaged a situation where the majority of people would get up to their cap in the first few days of the week, and then people who wanted to do it in the last couple of the days of the week would find it more difficult to find groups to do it with. That was one of his main reasonings. And, you know, I don't agree with that. At the same time, I haven't heard them change their mind on that either. So that could, and if that's their reasoning and they still believe that's to be true, then, you know, that would still scupper a weekly cap for Azerite. The classes were too underdone at the moment. Yeah. I don't know about the majority of them. The ones I've played, you know, the Hunter seemed okay. There's still work to be done. Everyone knows tuning is going to happen along after it launches. In fact, the proper tuning. But I've played 4 classes now, and they're all playable. You know, they're all perfectly playable. So I don't buy that either. You've got 2 personal friends in Alpha that aren't channel people, but are pretty frustrated. Don't follow a great deal of streamers. Focus more on quality interaction. Good. Well, I mean, again, it depends what you expect of it. If all you want to do is focus on the class you're going to play and the content, in other words, you're playing it as a sort of pre-order of the game, then yeah, because there's not much to do. Because there never is. They're only going to let us, they're only letting us test what they want us to test. Like, if they opened up loads of it, then it would be difficult for them to be able to cope with the level of feedback. They need to give us small portions at a time so that they can make sense of the feedback. It's our job as testers to play it over and over again. We should be playing it over and over again. You know, because sometimes, for example, a bug on a quest doesn't manifest itself every time. Like, there's a bug on a quest I've come across on the Horde thing. When I looked it up on forums, some people are saying, yeah, I've had that bug. Some people are saying it wasn't an issue. Some people are saying they had the bug, logged on the next day and it was fine. Okay? So it's intermittent. So, you know, that's what you need to be doing. You need to do it through and through. I might come to a bit when I do it again where I go, oh, this was fine last time I did it. Now it's not fine. Will I be looking for a cookie refund? No, the cookies were given in good faith for what they've already done. Let's say, worst case scenario, that they remove all the good stuff they did. Well, they still earned their cookies for giving me some hope. But I don't think that's going to be the case because, you know, I don't know whether you're here right at the beginning, but the person responsible who received the cookies was actually on the Paladin Discord for about an hour talking to people in there. And they actually seemed like a very sensible person to me. So, although they're not going to do everything I want, they might not even do anything I want, it nonetheless sounds like they know what they're doing. So, I am most impressed with them. I've forgotten the person's name again. Hold on. John Yang, okay? I am very impressed with Mr. Yang. And I am more than happy about the direction it's going in. So, the question is not whether I'll be wanting the cookies back. That will certainly not be the case. The question is whether there comes a point where I feel obliged to send some champagne. Or fancy chockies or something. Maybe I'll need to make a directory of suitable places in California, or Irvine, however it's pronounced over there, that can send nice posh stuff. Let's have a look, because we need to see some actual gameplay with people with actual gear on, not crap green gear that nobody's going to have at launch. It's not crap green gear. Okay, it's crap by the standards of players who are playing at the moment. It's a bit. The gear you start off with is the equivalent of Mythic Nighthold gear. That is a lot better than the gear that people who ding 110 in BFA are going to have. I worry about those poor sons of bitches because they are going to have to level up in the equivalent of what what would now be like item level 700 max, if that. Probably less now. We're doing it in like Mythic Nighthold equivalent gear. Yeah, it's fine. Yes, I will be doing a video on that. It'll be a, well, you know, I suppose there's a couple of videos in it. One for Rets and one for not so much Rets. Not having gone through the process, just curious if they have some sort of timeline and checklist they want you following. They will, but we don't know what that checklist is. They don't, like the build that's on the alpha right now is not the build they have to work on. It's the one that contains the stuff they want us to test. That's also why you have things in the game files that are not enabled in game. Because, you know, they want us to test things a bit at a time, bit at a time, bit at a time. Oh, excuse me. Is mob health still scaling there? Oh, it doesn't, remember, it doesn't. Oh, do you mean like when they tried on the Broken Shore? Even then, it's still an advantage to have much higher item level. Does mob health scale below max level? I don't know. All you can make, the only characters you can make at the moment are pre-made level 110s. You can't make any other type of character. But I strongly suspect it's not. But yeah, if you've got Mythic Antorus gear, you will absolutely go through the mobs quite quickly, I would think. In fact, well, I say quite quickly, I mean, at the moment, I'm level 116, and my gear, my item level, is now getting close to Mythic Antorus baseline gear. The equivalent of the item level, remember, has been squished as well. So, but I'm getting close to the equivalent of about 960. So, you know, it's still, and it's still, there's still a challenge there, but it's not as much of a challenge as it used to be, you know, when I was just a bare level 110 on it. What about ATBT heroic? Hang on a minute, what? What's ATBT? Oh, I'm towards the Burning Throne. More than that. I'm on more than heroic and Taurus at the moment in terms of my gear. So at level 116, the gear you're getting is better than heroic. Not quite as good as baseline Mythic Antorus. They've done things on the Paladin Discord. They've created another bloody channel. I need to worry about. Do that later. But I'll do the usual thing. We've sort of got to 9 o'clock. And as I have things I'll sort of want to do, I'm going to give it a few minutes as I usually do. And then I'll get off. So you can't wait for people to be able to hit 120. The thing is, I was wondering about this. So what they did first of all when I got in is the level cap was 113. And there was like one zone for Alliance, one for Horde. Then they opened up another zone for each. And they made the cap 116. Now, let's say they open up the final zone. I don't know, because there's arguments for and against. If they leave us only capping at 119, because they don't want us to get to level cap, because they haven't put the level cap stuff in, then that means that when they do eventually allow us to get to level cap, we might have done all the quests and not have a ready source of experience to do it. So I don't know. See, the thing is, that's why I'm thinking it might take another couple of weeks rather than another week for that to happen. Because as soon as we can get to level 120, presumably they have to start then putting in the level cap content to test. Like at the moment, remember, we haven't got any... Maybe that's why people are frustrated, because all the new features that were advertised at BlizzCon are not in yet. So Azerite armor isn't in yet. The Warfronts aren't in yet, of course. The islands, the island exploration isn't in yet. Do you start the artifact neck at the start of the expansion? I can't possibly say that. The problem with Alpha is they don't let you do stuff in order. So the first quest you're going to do when it goes live is not a quest that you can even do on the Alpha at the moment. You could do for Alliance a couple of weeks ago, but they've removed it, it seems. And it was never there for the Horde as far as I could tell. So I don't know how you acquire the neck. It seems to be that you'll probably acquire it quite early on. But I don't know how or when, because that's not in the game. The dev will not have watched my stream tonight, or will be watching on YouTube later. But I already thanked them for their work and said that the cookies, which were not just cookies, or they're not supposed to be, they were supposed to be cookies, muffies and brownies, because, you know, I sent a selection of stuff because I didn't know what they would like. And I didn't know it was just one person either. I assumed they're going to share them with others. But, yes, I did thank them. It was a job well done. It was well deserved. And there is a promise of more or nicer stuff as long as I remain happy. Which I think I will be, actually. I am impressed. I was impressed with what they had to say on the Discord as well. That was a lovely bit of interaction there, which it would be nice. It's one in the eye for AMR as well. Ask Mr. Robot, keep banging this drum about how the class discords are really toxic. Well, we had a class developer talking for an hour in the Paladin Discord, which is supposed to be one of the worst ones, apparently. And everyone was lovely. So, you know, there you go. Might have to rub that one in as well when I do a video. The islands and Warfronts may be in, but no one can access it. Well, that's what I mean. It might well be in the files, although I don't think it is, by the way. Because if it's in the files, then you could data mine some stuff. And I don't think there's anything there to data mine. But, what was I going to say? Yes, the... you know, some things will be in the files there, but if we can't access them, then all we can really do is look at data mine stuff. Like, for example, there's some stuff to do with Dark Iron Dwarves and Zandalari Trolls in there, but we can't play them yet on the alpha. They're not there. So, you know, all we can do is look at the data mine stuff until they do that. But anyway, I'm going to call it a day there because, you know, I do now have stuff to do. There was already a video I was going to do earlier and then didn't get time to do it. So I've now got an increasing list of things to do. So I'm going to leave it there. I will get this one up on YouTube immediately because I'm just going to export it directly to YouTube. So thanks very much for coming on, everyone. And until next time, I shall see you later.